So, hello and welcome, guys, to Cyber Diaries episode number 34. We have another amazing guest with us. We have Itzik Alvas from Entro Security. So, welcome, Itzik.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to have you guys. I would love to, first of all, if you can just briefly explain, what you do, what is Entro Security, and I guess we'll dive right into hopefully some insightful questions for our audience and cover a bit about what you guys do, how you guys got where you are and some of the problems you guys are trying to solve.
Yeah, for sure. A bit about myself. Itzik Alvas. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Entro Security currently. Prior to that, I managed the internal security of Microsoft Defender, one of Microsoft's clouds. Before that, was a chief information security officer for an healthcare services company. Started my journey back at of cyber back at one of the Israeli intelligence units. So been in the cyber realm for almost 20 years now. Entro Security is a non-human identity lifecycle management and AI agent security platform. We're helping organizations to securely use non-human identities like service accounts, API keys, connection strings, and so forth. And from almost 10 months ago, we're also helping organizations to securely use AI agents that are growing in the organization, mostly serving enterprise customers, so B2B company, cybersecurity. We're based in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Good stuff. I think I always, since I read, some of the books about, we always, I think, as a CISOs and security leaders, we're always wondering, what's next. There always seems to be, CISO is the pinnacle of your career, but there's, and it seems like it's a hard journey, but there is more and more people, I guess, finding interesting problems to solve and creating businesses. So I just want to delve deeper a bit, maybe about a bit, to cover a bit about your career and maybe how you got there. So you kind of mentioned Microsoft. So you spent, over a decade in platform engineering roles, moved to Microsoft Defender, as you said, SRE and security. What was the specific, maybe moment or incident that, made you realize that secrets management and non-human identity space was fundamentally broken?
So I was unfortunately personally breached 3 times by non-human identities. I just maybe let's frame it for a second. Non-human identities are identities that applications are using in order to access or authenticate actually against resources those application needs. So if an application, just for an example, if an application needs to use a database or a storage, in order to authenticate against them, they will need some sort of an identity, and that's the role of non-human identities, again, like service accounts or API keys or connection strings, and so forth. Secrets are the credentials of non-human identities. So you can think about a non-human identity like a username, if we're gonna compare those two, and the secret is the credential, is the password of that username. So non-human identity is actually like an empty entity. You have permissions over there, you have other attributes, activities, but applications are actually using the secrets in order to authenticate. And the main problem that I had back when I managed, those non-human identities and the security overall, is that usually developers are the ones who are creating those non-human identities, permissioning them, using them, and a lot of the time also scattering them around, like storing them in config files and sending them over Slack or Teams channels and in Confluence pages and so forth. And I didn't knew how many non-human identities and secrets I have and where they are, which is problem number one. And if you ever seen an API key and so forth, and those tokens, those non-human identities, they are long randomized strings, which means that even if you find one, like, you don't really know anything about it. You don't know who's the human owner, which application is using it, what permission it holds, and how it's being utilized, and so forth. And when you're combining that you don't know how many non-human identities you have, where they are, or how they can be utilized, you literally are unable to protect them. So I was unfortunately breached a few times by non-human identities, which kind of led me to think about the problem, and eventually start Entro Security.
Mm-hmm. So, as I kind of touched a bit on founding a business, so you're in a stable, senior role at Microsoft, arguably, one of the safest positions in tech. Walk us a bit through a decision to leave that security, and to start Entro in 2022. Is there something that kept you up at night in the first few months?
Yes, definitely. That's a very good question. I was doing very well at Microsoft. I was doing very well throughout my career. And yes, starting a business is definitely risky. But it was burning inside of me, like the trying to solve the problem. So, by the way, non-human identities, that's an ancient problem, right? From the time that application needed to interact with a database or with another application, there was a key to authenticate that. And I always seen how it's getting kind of ignored in the cybersecurity space. We're investing so much in the human identities. We have MFAs and SSOs and CASB and Zero Trust, and we have so many other stuff over there. But actually, we have so many other identities that have way more provisions, and we're not doing anything, not even an inventory, to try to secure them. So yes, it was a huge problem. As mentioned, I was breached multiple times because of that. Today, by the way, if you're following the latest report, like IBM cost of data breach, Verizon report, Gartner, like the main ones out there, it's the second most frequent attack vector. It's the number one most costly attack to an organization. Yesterday was a huge attack over exposed secrets, which are again the credentials of non-human identities. And yeah, that's why I kind of felt that, okay, I can always go back to work for Microsoft or Google or an Amazon, AWS and so forth. But I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to try to actually solve that. So I joined forces with a friend of mine, Adam. He was managing the cloud back at Broadcom. And yeah, we went for it, raised some capital and started to solve the problem. We're basically growing since then. It's became a huge market, and it's a testament of the problem area and how big it is.
I guess if we dive a bit into actual the solution, so you kind of the website, I think, shares a powerful statement: attackers log in, they don't break in. Can you walk us through a real world scenario of how attacker potentially can weaponize and unmanage non-human identity, and what makes that attack vector so dangerous compared to traditional sort of perimeter breaches?
Yeah, for sure. Now also again AI. In order for AI agent to gain data access. So at the end of the day, if you're using an AI agent, maybe to help you write code. Maybe you're a developer and you're using an AI agent like Cursor or Gemini Code and so forth in order to help you to write code and push code to your GitHub environment. That AI agent needs access to GitHub, right? And in order to gain access to GitHub, in order to gain access to your data, is also using non-human identity. So we're seeing like the usage continuing to grow. Again, it's powering everything. Everything that we're doing around IT or any sort of technology. I can give an example from again yesterday. So today it's November 25th when we're recording that one. But yesterday, 24th of November 25, then there was a huge attack. Shai Halad, if you heard about that. Basically, somebody used an NPM package, which is a package that developers are downloading in order to use, in order to help them to write code and so forth, and basically did some sort of a supply chain campaign where he compromised few NPM packages, mainly from Zapier, but from others too, like Postman and so forth, something that, everybody's using. So he compromised them in order to basically gain control over the GitHub environment. And what he searched in the GitHub environment, he searched for unexposed secrets, which are, again, the credentials of those non-human identity. And once he found those exposed secrets, he basically used them in order to access other systems. So if a developer is exposing a secret of a non-human identity that has access to your Azure environment, and if he's exposing it and committing it into GitHub, then once an attacker gets an hold of your GitHub environment, like what happened yesterday, it can use that in order to find those secrets and access your Azure environment or access your AWS environment or other environments that you have exposed secrets at. So that's like one example. But again, every other week we're seeing an attack on non-human identities. Unfortunately, because those are being created outside of security oversight.
Yeah, and I think it's important what you mentioned here. I think, as you say, people are playing around with tools like, Zapier and all kinds of tools. And then, all of a sudden, one exposure leads into your GitHub where potentially, the risk and the damage can magnify and potentially, find other secrets. And then it just becomes, a sort of a chaining activity that you can explore and then, cause a lot of damage to the business. Now,
yeah. So yesterday, like over 26,000 repositories got leaked. And within them, over 2 million non-human identities got leaked too, which means that probably as we're speaking, somebody is using them in order to access the environment of some poor organization out there and basically taking data out or encrypting their environment and so forth.
Yeah, the risk is huge. And I think obviously,
yeah.
I think the latest reports is, I think I mentioned the other day in the post, but I think even I probably miscalculated the numbers where I said, I think most common organizations have sort of 10 non-human identities to one human identity, but I think the numbers are way bigger than that. And I think
so from our latest report, for every human identity in the company, there are 144 non-human identities. So the scale is unreal. We are seeing a lot of growth because of AI agents that needs to use non-human identity in order to gain data access to the environment. But yeah, the scale is unreal, unmanageable.
Yeah, and since we're talking about AI, so you kind of position Entro as sort of an intersection between NHI and agentic AI. So most security vendors are still, catching up to basic AI risks. How did you see the convergence of AI agents, secrets, sort of managements coming? Are there anything CISOs are missing about this emerging threat?
Yes, for sure. So again, the way we're seeing it is that AI agents needs to use a non-human identity in order to gain data access. That's how they authenticate. That's how AI agents are authenticating against resources. So if you're using an AI agent in order to manage your calendar and book meetings for you, that AI agents will use API in order to connect to your calendar. And in order to authenticate against that API, will use a non-human identity. That non-human identity in turn will use secrets as its credentials. So for us, it's pretty much all of the same. You have an AI agent that is using a non-human identity, that is using a secret. So we kind of thinking about AI agents as non-human identities on steroids, if you will. So yeah, that's how we're seeing it. And I think the problem sets that we're seeing for non-human identities are very similar for the AI agent space too. Over there, you have a lot of employees in the organization that are creating those AI agents. They are assigning non-human identities to them in order to access their resources and your organizational data, and they are creating them without proper security oversight. Usually, as security, you don't really know or have the capability to know how many AI agents you have in the environment. You also don't know, any context or business context around them, why they were downloaded or installed or used, what's their purpose, what kind of permissions they have, how they are being utilized. Very similar to the non-human identity, where you don't know how many you have, where they are, how they can be used. You don't know the risks, and therefore it's very problematic to manage their life cycle. I'll give you another statistic. When we're entering an environment, we're seeing that about 40% out of all non-human identities, service accounts, and so forth are enabled. Someone can use them, but no one is. They are idle, stale.
Mm-hmm.
You had an application, you deprecated it, no one deletes their service accounts. I know you evaluated the vendor, you decided not to go forward with that. That vendor can still access your environment probably because you haven't disabled these tokens. So the entire lifecycle management piece of non-human identities and AI agents is very problematic in today's landscape.
So I think the most common problem that we see in cybersecurity, obviously, is that you can't protect something unless you can see it. So how does it solve? I assume a couple of problems here. Do you guys allow security to gain visibility in all of the new non-human identities used within an organization, and then also how does it help protect them from being exposed?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So we're helping, as mentioned, helping organizations securely use non-human identities and AI agents by automating and securing their lifecycle. And basically, we're doing that with 6 different pillars. Where the first one is inventory. Let's get an inventory. Let's understand how many non-human identities or AI agents we have and where they are. That's the very first step. Let's have one place to understand how many we have and where. After that, we're enriching them with context, with data. We're classifying them. We're basically creating a lineage map of which application is using what non-human identity to access what resource and other vital data around it, like with the human owner, permissions, activities, everything you need to know in order to understand the blast radius of either your AI agent or non-human identity. And once we have those two, once we have inventory and classification, now we can start doing management pieces. Now we can start doing security stuff. We can do like misconfiguration, and that's the third pillar, posture management, to understand how many of them have admin permissions they don't need or use, how many of them have not been rotated for a long time, and so forth. So misconfiguration. The fourth pillar is basically abnormal behaviors. So if we're seeing any abnormal behaviors from AI agents doing stuff they shouldn't, like exposing secrets or like, turning repositories from private to public, what happened in yesterday's attack.
Yep.
If someone is using your non-human identity, maybe is using your service account from North Korea and you're not doing business at North Korea, that should be, you should be aware, right? And that should probably be prevented. So we're going to do detection and response. And then because there's so many non-human identities, the fifth one will be automated response and remediation. So we can do a lot of automation in order to secure all of the findings that we find. And the last one is actually removing them once they are no longer needed, ending their life cycle.
Okay, and I assume that you have the ability to detect like when they were last used, and
Yeah,
I assume you would be able to create a rule saying if this dormant identity has been not used for 60 days, just remove it.
Yeah, so it's a bit more complex than that, but yes, we're able to do that. It's more complex because we're enriching like the owner and so forth. So we're gonna reach out to the owner and we're gonna say, hey, you have an AI agent over there that you haven't used for 6 months. It has that and that access. And we're going to remove it in 2 weeks or disable it in 2 weeks if you're not going to click that button. And after we're disabling it, we're waiting for another like 2 weeks and we're going to kill it now if you're not going to click the other button. So we're gonna do it more gradually. Usually that's what organizations are adopting. But yes, you can be as aggressive as you would like and just kill them without notifying anybody.
Okay. And I guess from engineering perspective, what discovering and managing non-human identities from technical perspective, what is the most challenging thing for organizations to solve?
So, okay, let me share another statistic that was surprising to me at least. So most AI agents are actually living on the endpoint. So there are 2 buckets of AI agents. One bucket is cloud SaaS AI agents that can be, Microsoft Copilot or OpenAI, ChatGPT. If you're connecting it to your organizational systems, it can be AWS Bedrock, Salesforce Agentforce and so forth. AI agents that lives on the cloud. That's the fourth bucket. The second one is AI agents that are installed on your local machines or running on your local machines, endpoints like laptops and so forth. They can be Gemini Code or Cursor and Claude and stuff like that. We're seeing that over 70% of AI agents are actually local AI agents, endpoint AI agents, and not cloud ones, which was a surprise to me. And I think that's kind of, giving you in hindsight of why it's a problem. If you have developers or if you have IT personnel, so if you have an HR, people, my HR just installed a new AI agent at our laptop to help with offboarding stuff, to help figure out if an employee left the company and his human user got disabled, are we disabling his Slack and so forth, and that's something that runs on my HR employee locally on our machine, and we saw it in Entro, and I think that's kind of a huge problem where everybody can now download stuff and run them, even if it's without any installation, because it's basically just an exe. And then use their own user in order to connect them to the environment. Organizations are pretty blind when it comes to those kinds of scenarios. And I think that's very surprising every time that we're entering a new company, a new customer, and they see their landscape and they're like, okay, I had no idea that we're using over 100 different types of AI agents now. And I'm like, that was a surprise for me internally too.
And that's what probably traditionally where the big gap is, where sort of traditional PAM organizations are currently not solving that. So there's a real gap where, you go from your traditional IAM sort of PAM solutions where they have that gap in that space, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I think the main problem of PAM-like solutions or just-in-time kind of solutions, the main problem is that you need to know all of your users or all of your non-human identities or all of your AI agents in order to have them being routed via that system. Because PAM at the end of the day, or JIT at the end of the day, it's kind of a proxy solution, kind of a man in the middle. You're connecting to the PAM and then the PAM is giving you permissions. Yep. But how do you know? How can you tell your HR person to connect to the PAM, right? You don't know they are even running that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the main problem. And I do see a lot of companies going down that route of like creating an MCP server and telling the organization, hey, connect everything via my MCP server and you're going to be good to go. Great. How do I know what to connect? That's the main issue.
So I just want to bring it back a bit to sort of Entro launch. So you launched Entro in 2022. Yeah. Arguably, probably, the worst periods for cybersecurity fundraising in sort of recent memory. The market was oversaturated. VCs were, kind of pulling back. So how did you convince investors that, the world needed another security startup? Were there any objections that you faced during that time?
Oh, of course I faced objections. The main one was, it's an ancient problem. Non-human identities has been there forever. Nobody solved it yet. Why are you gonna solve that? I think that was the main question that we got. The way that we basically did it is we reached out to a lot of security leadership, security practitioners, CISOs, and so forth. So we reached out to them, and we kind of showed them, hey, that's what we're gonna build. We're not building it yet. We don't have the money to build it. Yeah. But let's say we will have the money and we are going to build it. Is that something you need? And when we can afford over and over, if that product would be live, I would definitely use it. I would definitely pay for it. And then we created a list that was almost 200 practitioners and CISOs and so forth. We created the list and we were like, if a VC will ever want to, execute the same, are you willing to take a call? And most of them did. Most of them were happy to do that. Of course, they haven't called anybody. And then we took that list and went to VCs and we were like, okay, so we did the market research. Those are all of the people that we spoke with. All of them needs the problem. All of them have the problem. All of them needs a solution like what we're going to build. If you want to join the tribe, let's do it. And I think that was very helpful for us. Getting VC money in Europe, probably the worst year in history to raise capital.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's so many cybersecurity vendors. How do you find, cutting through the noise when, I think the main problem CISOs are currently suffering from is tool fatigue. did you have to do anything else in your go-to-market strategies to kind of cut through that noise?
Yeah, I think the problem that we're solving is huge. I think organizations are getting it, and they need a solution for that, and they are not getting it from anybody else. So that is working for us. And also we have a lot of partnerships. Like we're partnering with pretty much everybody. We have a partnership with Palo Alto and Wiz, and we have a partnership with SailPoint, and we have a partnership with Microsoft and AWS, and you name it. So it's we're pushing a lot of data to other solutions, and we're gaining or getting data from other solutions too, which basically means that you can use whatever you decide to use, and you can find that raw data over there.
Sounds good. I wanted to kind of touch a bit. So you joined Forbes, Technology Council in 2023. Do you think that, working through, thought leadership, content creation, and sort of helps building Entro brand essentially, and has it actually translated into anything useful for yourself and for the business?
Yeah, I think every marketing is super important for an early market. So we were the first one who started a solution around non-human identity. We were one of the first to start around AI agents too. And if our main problem, I think any new market main problem is that people are not aware there's a solution that can solve that. So you go on, live your life, handling your day-to-day stuff. You have that problem, you're suffering from that problem, you would like to solve it, you would like to understand how many non-human identities I have, you would like to know how many AI agents I have, you would like to know how they are being utilized and to secure them, but you don't know there's something out there that can solve that for you. So I think that's the true power of marketing, that kind of, awareness. Yes, brand awareness around Entro Security, but also awareness around there's a solution out there for that problem, and you can search for it, and just making people more aware. So I think that's the main power of any marketing strategy.
Yeah. So you mentioned that, that long list of CISOs that you spoke with, does that, translate into, are you building features directly from CISO feedback, or is it more of a sort of becomes a market validation tool? Are you still collaborating with CISOs as you building out the tool in the future?
I think both. It's super important for the validation stage, to ask them a question, hey, I'm going to raise money, I'm going to leave, everything that I'm doing, I'm not going to spend time with my family, I'm not going to work in a decent, company or a huge company like Microsoft anymore. I'm gonna focus on that. Should I do that? And I think that's a huge validation mechanism when you're saying I'm gonna raise a lot of money, put my neck on the line. So that's a huge validation. But also, yes, as we're building it and as we're understanding what else can we do, of course, we're taking that to our customers and to our prospects and everybody that can share feedback, and we're collecting all of that feedback, and we're circling it around and understand what's the next step, what's the next feature that we should support, where's the pain point, what else we haven't done or haven't thought about, or maybe we did thought about it and they will just validate it. But yes, definitely we would like to build something that is helping our customers, and what's better than asking them, hey, what do you need?
Yeah, exactly. I think, one thing that I think springs to mind is that non-human identity kind of security, that sort of the whole field and category is kind of relatively new. So, in your sales cycle, how much of the work is done educating versus, competing for budget? Because I think, education is still an important part, as you say, because it's quite relatively, even though we have the problem, as you say, is ancient, but that security and solution in that space is relatively new.
Correct. I think our first year was, I'll say, 80% education. Now it's kind of toned, it's 20% education. I think people, And like Gartner already did a lot of papers, and we were mentioned multiple times over there, and Foresters and other. And I think like the market is kind of at a point where they understand there's a solution for that, and now they need to budget it in, which is never easy. It's never easy to pay for something, although you need it. So I think the market has turned, and I'm super happy to see that. But definitely in our first year, that was 80% education, which is not easy.
Yeah, and I think there's probably still a work to be done, because I think sometimes, even though CISOs get it, I think at the end of the day, sometimes the solution still needs to be sold to the board to get budget approvals and things like that, and it's hard to sometimes translate these technical solutions to people who don't understand technology, and where the risks lies, where the return is, and do you guys face any of that problems, and how do you help, for example, for CISOs to build business cases, and how to gain support across the business for that kind of solution?
Yeah, different companies are doing different stuff, like risk registries and so forth. I can tell you what I used to do when I was a CISO, working with the board, and the board is usually not technical people, and that's good. They need to be business people.
Yes.
But what I used to do is looking at those reports that I mentioned earlier, like IBM Cost of Data Breach and Gartner and Verizon. Those are the main ones, and I was like, okay. Number one, most frequent tech vector is phishing. Do we have anything for that? We do. Great. Second one, it's non-human identity. Do we have anything for that? We don't. Okay, that's our next project. Third one, and so forth. And that's pretty easy. I'm like, okay, that's the list. That's where organizations are getting breached, similar organizations of ours, and we need a solution for each one of them. Let's tackle it according to somebody else's research and not our own, because they probably are doing better job. But again, different organizations are doing different stuff, and definitely it's not easy to increase your budget if you haven't budgeted it in. And it's also budget season right now, right? So hopefully people are looking at those reports or figuring out exactly what they need to do and getting it into the budget.
Yeah. Now, what do most companies, do you think, they get wrong when they first start tackling the secret sprawl? Is there sort of common blind spot in security programs that you face today when you start interacting with new clients?
So secret sprawl, so again, secrets are credentials, and they look like credentials, and therefore there's a lot of false positives over there. And I think the main issue is to find high entropy strings and understand if they are actually secrets that belong to a non-human identity, or somebody just fell down on his keyboard, and that's why we have a long randomized string over there. So I think the main problem is the context, is the ability to not only find them, because it's, I wouldn't say easy, but it's fairly easy to find long randomized strings and then figure out if those are actually secrets. I think the context is what's missing. So if you're scanning your environment and you're finding 10,000 or millions, we have enterprises with millions over millions of exposed non-human identities and secrets. And okay, you're finding them. Now what? You have millions of them. What are you going to do? You need some sort of a classification. You need to understand, okay, let's start with the ones that have admin permission over my AWS environment. Let's start over there. Everything that is disabled, who cares? Leave them exposed where they are. They're disabled, no one can use them. Yeah. Stuff like that. You need something to help you filter it out. So you need classification, and I think that's the biggest pitfall when you're dealing with large numbers, and anything with large numbers. You need the ability to filter it out.
Yep, brilliant. Now, I guess if we look a bit in the near future, where do you see sort of NHI security market going? I think, obviously in cyber it's hard to predict, something a few years down the line, but at least, a year or two down the line. Where do you see, that kind of market going?
Yeah, so you have human identities, and then you have non-human identities. The AI agents are a part of the non-human identity side, and they are also using service accounts and API keys, so that problem will only increase. It's already increasing. So I think, our company at least will keep focusing on the AI agent side and the non-human identity side and their respectful secrets to make sure everything is secure over there and keep leading that vertical because it's only going to increase. And as we're going to adopt more AI agent and we're going to adopt way more AI agent in the upcoming years, that problem will become a way major issue for organizations. And it's currently the second most frequent attack vector. So hopefully companies will start doing something with that and we can see those numbers kind of decreasing. But we're gonna continue to lead that market.
Yeah, I think you spot on in there. I think that problem, hopefully, it looks like it's just going to be growing because obviously AI adoption is accelerating fast, and obviously autonomous agents and all of that space, it seems like it's only going up and up and up. So I think that risk is going to come to the forefront, and hopefully people will be aware how to solve and what to do about solving it. Now, I just bring it back, to, maybe there are audience or people who are, technical people and maybe are considering maybe going down the founder path, So, is there something that you wish you'd known before you became a founder? What kind of lessons early in the founder journey that helped you that you think maybe if I've known that would have been easier for me?
Oh, there are so many stuff. I came from a practitioner background, technical background. I knew nothing about running a business, about sales, about marketing, about a lot of the side. That's fine, everybody has its own background. I do think it's great that I'm a CISO, selling to CISO, so I kind of understand their pain points and what they're looking for. But something that I've done, and I think every founder should do, is find, other founders in the space that are one step, two step, maybe several steps ahead of them, and just use them in order to gain some mentorship. Because at the end of the day, you don't know everything, and that's fine. What's not fine is if you're not working to, close that gap. So definitely get your other founders friends or become friends of other founders, hopefully within your vertical or space, and kind of work with them in order to close the gaps of whatever you don't know. It's not easy to be CISO, and it's definitely not easy to build a company. You've been a CISO, so you know that at the end of the day, you don't know everything, and that's fine, but you do need to lean in on others in order to help you understand it.
Yeah, and I think in a way, we're quite lucky because I think I've never probably been in any industry before like cybersecurity where I think people are willing to give their time, to give,
for sure,
their advice and support each other. I think our industry is like no other where people are, really willing to offer advice and help to each other, and sort of camaraderie is great.
Right. Yeah. We have great people in that industry for sure.
Yeah. And I guess, just to finish it off, I always like to look a bit and, do you have any controversial take or opinion about current state of cybersecurity?
I think I'm not sure if it's controversial or not, but I used to manage my cybersecurity plan differently than what I'm hearing in the market. So you talked earlier about market consolidation. Yeah. Maybe we can have one thing to solve it all. Maybe we can, only work with Palo Alto and gain everything or most of the stuff from them. And I never thought about cybersecurity like that. I'm gonna explain. For me, and now that I'm managing sales and I'm managing engineering and I'm managing, marketing and managing internal cybersecurity and everything as a CEO, if you're gaining like 80% efficiency at your engineering group, you're great. That's like an A+. Mm-hmm. And that's 80% coverage or efficiency. If you're gaining 80% coverage at your cybersecurity, you're going to get breached. So if you have an amazing EDR solution and you have an amazing firewall solution and you have an amazing human identity security solution and so forth, but you're getting an A in all of them, but you're getting a D in the AI agent realm or getting a D in non-human identity, you're 80% maybe, but you're going to get breached. So for me, best of breed was always what I used to go after when I managed cybersecurity, and not best of suites. Always best of breed. That's I think cybersecurity is kind of different. It's not an average game. You're unable to play that average game that everybody else is playing. You need to gain a B plus, A minus in everything that you're doing, and you're not allowed to have A plus in everything and a D in something, because that D is what will get you breached. So I think maybe that's a bit controversial.
No, I think it really makes sense, because I think sometimes, and I see this often, whereas, normally nowadays, cyber vendors, they're not building platforms. They are acquiring tools, and it becomes a mishmash of tools where they sell as a platform. Therefore, it just becomes problem with integration, with interoperability, and all of that. And then it just opens so many problems that I think we can never really solve. So I think, finding the best solution in your organization for your specific problem is definitely the way to go, instead of trying to, buy all in one. Now,
yeah, integrating a Frankenstein is never a good idea.
Yeah, exactly. So before we finish, I guess, if people want to find out more about non-human identity, more about Entro Security and how you guys are solving, where can I find more information and learn a bit more about this space?
Yeah, it's easy. I'm easy to find, search for me over LinkedIn, Itzik Alvas. I'm super easy to find, or go to our website, Entro, ENTRO, Entro Security. There's a lot of information over there, and you can basically ask for a meeting, and we're going to jump to a meeting. You can play around with the product over there. I think we're pretty easy to find if you would like to double click on everything that we spoke about.
Brilliant. Well, that's the episode. Thank you very much for coming along, Itzik. It was a really great and insightful conversation to kind of open peek behind the curtain about this new, I guess, raising cybersecurity risk that's out there. So thank you for coming along.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Brilliant. Thank you, Itzik. So